I'm Amanda Knox, and you're listening to Hard Knocks. Welcome to Hard Knocks. Today, Chris and I are going to be discussing how Bedhead is back in season.
That's true.
I was really excited about this. Apparently, our producer forwarded us this article about how all the fashion-forward people are just rolling out of bed with their hair. And they're just so now finally I'm fashion forward, but that is not actually what we're going to be talking about today.
It's a bit of good news. I mean, I think the bad news there is that probably they're spending a lot of time to make it look like they rolled out of bed.
Right? They're just
Not
trying.
exactly
They're
the same.
trying to get this
Yeah,
frizzy vibe, and
I
they're
know.
trying too hard.
You're
So,
just naturally frizzy. How do you do it?
I mean, look, it's why I went to prison. Is this vibe?
No, we're talking about good news and bad news,
That's right.
and the conjunction of the two. And this came about from a piece of good news and a piece of bad news that rolled in this morning. So,
Yeah, it's funny how that
yeah.
keeps happening to me. Is whenever something that's like notably good, it always tends to appear with something that's notably bad, or something that's notably bad tends to appear with something notably good. So the last example of this that's quite notable, like it's not like a small thing, like it's a big thing. Like the last time, and this was in the documentary, right? Like I was
Is this
in
in the
Mouth. I
documentary?
thought it was in
In
Mouth.
in Mouth of the Wolf?
Yeah, didn't we
I
get
don't think it
covered?
made the final cut.
Oh, it didn't. Okay. Well, there was
Yeah.
this scene that used to be in Mouth of the Wolf, but didn't make the cut. But it was the day that I
I
received
think
the
it was
news.
January 2025, right?
Yes. So it was the
Yeah.
day that I received the news that the Italian Supreme Court had upheld my conviction in the retrial for my slander charge. And that
And you
was
were devastated.
that was very bad news. I had been really hoping that the Italian Supreme Court would come through and call bullshit on the appeals level, and they did not. So I was super, super
You had
bummed.
just been sentenced to 3 years time served, kind of officially
The
gaslit by the
maximum, yeah, the
Italian.
maximum
Yeah.
sentence that they could give me for this crime. And
And at that exact moment, we get a phone call from Lara Zarovsky of the Washington Innocence Project to inform us that Amanda is going to be awarded the Innocence Network Impact Award at the following conference, which is a really distinguished honor in the
it's a
world
big
of,
deal.
yeah.
It's a big deal. Only one person gets it every year, and typically it's somebody who has become a lawyer or something. Like somebody who's like a big deal in the innocence community, has done tons of advocacy work. It's a huge honor. And so just like the sort of emotional and psychological whiplash of that. And actually, like, I remember people first watching a cut of the documentary that had that scene in it, and some people were like, wait, did that really happen that way? And it was like, yes. Like it
Yeah.
really literally happened, that like I got this email telling me about the conviction, and then we got this phone call, and I'm like still in tears over the conviction as I'm talking to Laura. Anyway, so a sort of kind of similar thing happened today, as it relates to this slander conviction, actually. So, for those who are not up to date on my whole legal process, I am appealing that ongoing slander conviction again to the European Court of Human Rights. The reason I was actually able to overturn it and be retried in the first place back in 2024 was because the European Court of Human Rights had ruled in my favor and said that my conviction was based on a illegal interrogation, and they sanctioned Italy, and I was able to overturn the conviction, be retried, but then I was found guilty again. So the current up-to-date thing is that I'm appealing once again to the European Court of Human Rights. It was a long shot. My attorneys told me that the court never takes the same case twice. And so, 99% 98% of the cases always get dismissed. They don't even get heard, and I shouldn't get my hopes up. Well, the court accepted the case. It's actually been named an impact case. Because,
just to be clear, this is not the good news that came in this
no,
morning.
This
happened a while ago.
Yeah, this is a while ago. This is not the good news. This is just the news behind the news that we're getting to. So the European Court of Human Rights is going to hear my case again, and they're going to rule again on whether or not this new conviction is sound. And the bad news that I got today wasn't really bad news per se. It was, so we've made our complaint to the court, and Italy has responded, and their official position is super gaslighty and victim blamey, as you might suppose. And a good example of just like how gaslighty and victim blamey it is one of the claims that Italy is making in refuting and arguing against me getting my conviction overturned is that, I've argued to the European Court of Human Rights that I was not represented by a lawyer. I did not have a lawyer with me when I was, signing things and writing things under duress while I was at the police office. The Italy has responded saying, well, technically she was appointed a lawyer at that time. Technically she had a lawyer. And it's like, well, if by that you mean I had been arrested and you legally had given me appointed me a public defender that I hadn't spoken to, that hadn't appeared, I wasn't even informed that I had anyone to speak to.
No, you weren't even informed you were a suspect.
I wasn't even informed as a suspect, but they had already done the little arrest
So they
thing.
claim.
So they claim that technically I had a court-appointed attorney at that point, and therefore I cannot claim that I didn't have an attorney. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I had no attorney was there or present or giving me any kind of counsel, you freaking morons. But they're trying to make this sort of legal stance and take this legal stance that is basically saying, technically, we didn't deny her human rights. And it's just so fucking infuriating to this day be in this position where I'm fighting a legal battle with people who are just arguing in bad faith. So that was my bad news for the day.
Yeah, kind of injection of negative energy.
Right.
I do want to just pause here. Are you comfortable with all the stuff you said going out into the world, saying you frickin' morons, all that stuff?
Yes, I am.
That's you talking to the Italian state while you have a pending case before the European Court of Human Rights.
I highly doubt they're listening to our podcast.
You don't know. You don't know.
Whatever. They're frickin' morons. They know it. Anyway, continuing.
Okay. All right. Well, I will just say that, you respect the jurisprudence of the European Court and the sovereignty of Italy and its the legitimacy of its judicial system, et cetera, et cetera. The good news that came in is that we got an email from Amanda's publisher that her memoir, Free, My Search for Meaning, was just announced as a finalist for the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, which is also a big deal.
That's a huge deal. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm a finalist alongside people who wrote about the war in Ukraine and about racism in the U.S. I'm there alongside another exoneree who wrote a book called Jailhouse Lawyer. He became a jailhouse lawyer. And so it's really cool. I was not expecting that. I don't know, how does one even get nominated for that?
The publisher.
Oh, the publisher
nominated
does. Okay.
you, yeah.
That's nice. That's nice to know.
And I looked into the Dayton Peace Prize. It's a well-known prize. It's prestigious. It's been around for quite a while. I think it came out of the peace accords that came out of Bosnia.
Oh.
And so it has this history of reflecting, big high stakes, efforts towards peace and reconciliation, often on a national scale. Oh. And so historically, the kinds of books that get awarded this deal with those bigger systemic issues, things
Right.
like war and genocide. And one of the books that's one of the finalists this year is about prosecuting Nazi war criminals,
Oh,
right?
right. Totally.
So, like, honestly, your book is kind of an outlier among most of the other books, and that is highly personal. It's about your one-on-one meeting with your prosecutor, attempt at reconciliation. But I think and hope that the judges recognize the kind of deeper universal messages in your book about, building bridges across divides and extending compassion to those who've harmed us. And I think a lot of that grander scale reconciliation can only happen if people are able to develop those skills one on one.
Yeah. But
Anyway,
anyway,
yeah.
got to thinking about how funny it is, first of all, that this keeps happening to me, where like
Yeah.
there's a very like, and in both situations, it's not just like bad news, good news. It's like public, it's like a highly public recognition or accusation that's taking place that
Yeah. A
happens at the
simultaneous, you're a bad person.
versus you're a good person.
Yeah. Versus, wow, you're so good. We're giving you an award.
I know, it's
Right?
just ridiculous. This is my life.
Well, you're so bad. We're charging you with a crime and
Or
sending you to
convicting
prison.
you to, yeah, we're
Yeah.
sentencing you, or
Right. So that the question before the court here then is, what do you do with that psychological whiplash when you get good news and bad news? And how do you think generally about good and bad news in your life? And has this sort of recurring experience shaped the way you respond to the next time that you get a piece of bad news or a piece of good news?
I mean, what's really funny about it, I think, like the first thing that comes to my mind is if you really want to be hippy dippy about it, it's almost like the universe is telling you, like the universe is specifically telling you, don't take any of this too seriously. Like, stay humble. Like, you're not a bad person. You're not a good person, is what it seems to say. It's like, or what it seems to say is it's like, wow, it's amazing how, depending upon your agenda or your perspective, like you can see the good in someone or totally fabricate the bad in someone. And it's just so interesting to me that like it, but yeah, I think that a hippy dippy person might look at that and say, that's just the universe balancing itself out very abruptly. And a little bit that resonates with me because I do always have this sort of yin yang idea in my mind that like I'm always a little bit afraid when something really good happens, especially some kind of public acknowledgement thing, because I'm always like, what's the little seed of darkness that's embedded in it? Like what's the catch? And on the flip side, when something really bad happens, I'm now very primed to think, but what's the good seed in it? Like, yes, this fucking sucks, but there's a good, there's like there's a silver lining to it. And so I think that when that happens, it just sort of reinforces that like, yes, I'm still literally being persecuted, and at the same time, it's not going unnoticed what my, positive efforts have been in response to that.
I mean, another way to look at this is that when you are battling some kind of injustice, whether on a personal scale or a societal scale, the bad guy jumps back up from behind the couch after you think he's dead and fires a few more bullets in the action movie. Like this is you expect the kind of backlash reactions that when you make progress in a social justice movement or whatever it is, that the reactionary force is going to come back and feel emboldened to strike out. And that's actually evidence that you're doing something good. And so one way to think about this is that Italy's tenacity to hold you guilty for
Of
something you didn't
something.
do, it's just evidence that it's as DJ Khaled would say, it's evidence that all you do is win, it's more winning.
I don't know how I feel about the DJ Khaled comparison, especially after his appearance on Hot Ones. But yeah, I mean, you could see that as that, or like I think that Italy was going to bully me anyway, no matter what. Like I think that a bully's a bully, right? Like I'm making a lot of friends with the Italian justice system here today, but like a bully's a bully. Like they were going to try to bury me no matter what, and I'm just being really stubborn. I'm being a thorn in their side about it. Like I'm not, like, as long as I can try to hold you accountable for it, I'm going to try to hold you accountable for it. That doesn't mean that I'm infinitely powerful to do so. But like back to the issue of like good news and bad news, I do stand by my thought, which is that I don't tend to think of any news as being unadulteratedly good or unadulteratedly bad. I tend to think that, like, I tend to think about the world as always in some kind of gray space. And I think that that's good because it's more realistic, right? Like even the best things that happen to us, like having kids, for instance. Having kids is one of the most amazing, best experiences of my life. And it's also not a fucking piece of cake all the time,
Yeah.
Like, so I think that, I think I think I have a very healthy relationship with the idea of news, because I push back against the idea of qualifying it as good or bad. And I think that that's also informed a bit by our Zen practice.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe it's time to bring up the parable of the farmer briefly for anyone who might not be familiar with
If
it.
someone is somehow not familiar with this story, I highly recommend the episode of Bluey called The Sign. And it's incredible. Can we just for a second fangirl a little bit about Bluey and how well that it is written? People need to know. They need to know that it's not just popular because it's a stupid kids like show that has like.
No, it's beautiful art.
It's beautiful
It's true.
art
Yeah.
that is incredibly well written and
Wise. Yeah.
frequently has Buddhist parables that they translate into kids' stories. And anyway, so the Buddhist parable version, not the Bluey one, because I don't want to give it away. It's incredible. You should go watch The Sign, the episode The Sign, right now after you get off of this. But the Buddhist parable is one day a farmer's horse breaks out and runs away. And all of his neighbors say, "What bad luck?" And he says, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returns with 3 wild horses, and all his neighbors say, "What good luck?" And he says, "Maybe." The next day, his son is out back trying to tame one of the wild horses, and he falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And all the neighbors say, "Oh, what bad luck." And the farmer says, "Maybe." And the next day, the army rolls into town and gathers up all the young men and conscripts them into the army, except for the farmer's son, because he's laid up with a broken leg. And all the neighbors say, "What good luck?" And the farmer says, "Maybe." So I think a lot of people take away from that parable that what we think is good or bad news may be its exact opposite. You never really know if something that happens to you is good or bad until you see what the consequences of it are. You have to have a little patience in order to find out if something is good and bad. But I think the more deeper Buddhist position is that everything that happens is neither good or bad. It is either both or it is neither.
It just is.
It
It's
just
just news.
is. It is
It's just news.
news.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think there is a Zen master who once said, like, there is no good or bad news. There's just news. And I, it's one of those things that sounds stupid when you say it. But, like, if you really think about it, it is so profound. And for me, at least, as someone who has had my life hinge in huge ways on news, like big things,
Verdicts, etc.
verdicts,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
verdicts. Like, it's such a relief, the idea that no matter what happens, it just is. And not only is it just is, like, it's okay.
So I want to pivot slightly to this related idea of amor fati, right? This is the principle of love your fate, and it's kind of related to the Stoic mindset idea of, you know, the obstacle is the way, right? And so it kind of goes beyond it just is. There's only news, and it's actually sort of like it's all good news in a way, right?
Right.
Like if what you're concluding from the Buddhist parable is your mindset and your frame is the only thing that's making it good or bad, and on its own it just is. Well, amor fati is then saying, why not actively embrace the good frame and choose to like see the things beyond your control as like a necessary part of your journey and find out how to not just accept them, but love them, which is a radical step beyond that, right?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the one like little pushback thing that I don't love amor fati. I don't love all news is good news because I don't think that anyone in Zen is trying to suggest that all, like, I don't think that they would claim that all news is good news. I don't. I don't think, like, there's a great example of like a conversation between a Zen master and a student where the student asks the master, like, why are you crying over the death of this person? Doesn't that mean that you're not enlightened? You don't understand
You
that,
seem
like,
attached,
you're
right?
you're
You're not,
attached to
yeah.
this person. You don't seem to recognize that this person is just a part of the universe and is not like this single entity. And I the master, if I recall correctly, replies something like, the great paradox is that we are all one with the universe, and therefore, like, death isn't a tragedy. It just is a thing. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no such thing really as loss because there's nothing to lose. Like, that would be the position. There is no such thing as loss because there's nothing to lose. And on the flip side, we are, all of us, embodied entities in the world who have a role and who have relationships. And pretending like the news that someone that you love, that you have a particular relationship with, is gone or lost, and just like not feeling the emotion of pain or loss that inspires, is itself a denial of the reality of existence. That's like the part of the Four Noble Truths, which is, pain is inevitable. Pain includes loss, and pain includes the loss of death. And that is inevitable. Just because you experience that doesn't mean that you aren't enlightened. Being enlightened means that you accept the fact that you are going to experience those things and you don't resist the fact that you're going to experience those things. And pretending like you don't experience those things is itself a kind of resistance.
Yeah, this conversation is turning very Buddhist here, but it reminds me of the line from, it's a kind of a koan that dates to this Zen master Sheng San, I think his name is.
Yeah, I never remember
I'm
the
pronouncing
names.
that terribly.
Yeah.
Who wrote a poem called Trust in Mind. And in that poem, there's a line, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences, is one translation of it. In that poem, he also says, not two, not one, which is this cryptic kind of phrase. But what it means is essentially not two is like you are not separate from everyone else. Like when you see another human or a tree or the you in the world, like subject object, like that's false. It's not two. You are not separated from them. But then when you inhabit it's all one. We're all one unity. Nope,
Nope,
not
not
one
that
either,
either.
bitch. And
Yeah.
that's the like infuriating part of Zen. That's also its genius, is that it embraces that paradox, right? It's not two and not one. And that, to go back to that other line, like the great way, the way of transcending suffering, the way of enlightenment, it's not difficult for those who have no preferences. And on the surface, that would lead you to think like, oh, so I'm not supposed to have a preference between my child gets hit by a bus or my child doesn't get hit by a bus. Like, of course you're going to have that preference, right? And yet it remains true that the way out of suffering is to somehow arrive at a place where you are totally at a state of equanimity, regardless of what news pours into your inbox, right?
Right. And I think that, again, the I think it's it's interesting that they say the great way with preferences. It's like, of course I would prefer that I and everyone I know and love would be happy and healthy and safe. That is a preference. And I am inevitably going to feel pain if at any point anyone I love is unhappy or unsafe or unhealthy. I think the interesting thing about it is that extra meta layer of suffering, which is almost more painful than the source of that suffering, which is the pain, just like the inevitable pain,
Yeah.
which is you like resisting the fact that something is true. Like resisting, like, no, I do not accept that my
Yeah.
kid is in the hospital and with COVID or whatever it is. And like resisting that fact is going to drive you absolutely crazy, and it's not like, it's just counterproductive. That is the extra meta layer of suffering that Buddhism can really help you avoid, because like, again, I don't think the Buddha ever promised anyone that they would not feel pain.
No, he promised the opposite.
In fact, yes, he promised the exact opposite. You are going to feel pain.
When I think about that preferences line, what always comes to me is like something mundane, like, well, am I supposed to have no preferences between a delicious pulled pork sandwich and a literal shit sandwich with a dog turd in it? Like, I obviously have a preference, right?
Yeah.
And, probably it's not let's make it more realistic. It's just how about a terrible airport sandwich that was $22 and isn't delicious?
Yeah.
Right? And like the thing that's I think supportable is that you should totally have a preference beforehand between which of those sandwiches you want to eat, right? But as soon as you have one of them and you take a bite and you're like, oh no, this sandwich is awful. If you sit there wishing that it was the good sandwich and not the bad sandwich you bought, that's the extra pain that you're creating for yourself. That's the place at which
all the time.
Yeah.
We do that all the time.
So it's like, as soon as it becomes reality,
Yeah.
you need to have no preference. If it's still hypothetical, left or right, sure, I can choose to go into the bathroom stall that is clean versus the one that's covered in pee,
Right.
right? Or I can, but if that's the only one there and I really have to go, no preference,
You know,
right?
I
You have to.
I read an article recently where someone interviewed Mel Brooks about, the 2,000-year-old man on all of his, he's
Yeah.
90 something now, and it's all the wisdom about comedy and life. And one of the quotes that stuck with me was something that was seeming like was very Buddhist, but obviously Mel Brooks is not well, actually, maybe not obviously Mel Brooks isn't a Buddhist. I have no idea what Mel Brooks is. I know he's Jewish, but like other than that, he said some people walk around like firecrackers, but really you just have to play ball with the universe. And it was like, yeah, like it's a very sort
That
of
is an incredible mixed metaphor.
I know.
And very Mel Brooks. Yeah.
I'm very Mel Brooks.
I'm trying to parse that still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like some people like respond to the whims of the universe with like just this sort of like blah blah no blah like kind of energy, and other people are like, all right, let's play ball. And it's like that's the sort of Taoist response of like the universe is coming at you and you just gotta flow with what you get. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's like the Chinese idea of li, which is the word for the grain in wood or the pattern in jade or the flow of a current.
right.
It's the patterns in nature.
And like I think some
yeah.
people interpret that as like tolerating the intolerable or going along just to get along, and that's the least charitable version. I think that's the straw man of it. The steel man of it is like recognizing how like what buttons you can push that would how you can maybe thinking about the world as one of those, what are those machines called where if you like do a thing it knocks a thing and then it knocks
A
another.
Rube Goldberg machine.
Yeah, like if you imagine the universe as like a Rube Goldberg machine and you're like, okay, what sort of like, or the butterfly effect, like what kind of like, how can I flutter my butterfly wings here so that it will have an actual effect instead of I'm, fluttering my butterfly wings against a brick wall,
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of something that Justin Brooks told us about inviting a district attorney to come speak at the Innocence Project, the Innocence Network event. This was a number of years ago. Justin Brooks is the founder of the California Innocence Project. And, the relationship between exonerees and prosecutors is not a cozy,
it's
comfortable one a lot of the
fraught.
time.
Yeah.
And this particular district attorney was actually responsible for wrongly convicting some of the exonerees that were in attendance at the conference. And it seemed like a big slap in the face to those exonerees to make the keynote speaker be this person. But the people who invited that speaker recognized that if you want to tackle the problem of wrongful convictions, you need the district attorneys not only to be on board with your agenda, but to like witness the human cost of what getting it wrong looks like, and inviting them into that space, even honoring them to come into that space, did a lot of work to try and build those bridges. It's not that
I
they
don't think
deserved
they
that
honored them.
Being the keynote speaker is an honor, right? It's a position of authority. It's allowing someone to like say their piece, and in a way that says we respect what you have to say, and we're here to listen to it. So it's definitely an honor. But it's like a means to an end, right? It also reminds me of, you've sometimes been criticized by people for like, why would you go talk to this podcast host or that one? I disagree with everything that person says, and I think they're a bad influence on society. Why would you talk to them? Mm-hmm. And your response has always been,
I'm a good influence on society,
yeah,
and particularly
like, do you think,
this person and their audience. So
don't you think their audience needs to hear about what I have to say, right? So, you're making.
I mean, that argument only goes so far, though, right? Like, I don't think that I would go on anybody's podcast.
Well, no.
So,
And you wouldn't invite, anybody to be the keynote speaker at your
right.
At your Innocence conference either. What were you saying just before this about the before you got to Rube Goldberg?
You're asking me to remember a thing I said?
Yes.
That's unheard of. I don't do that. I'm constantly in a trance. Like I wake up and I'm like, what just happened?
You're an LLM. You're just a predict the next token machine.
Well, you're in the world of our upcoming article that we're going to put out.
Yes.
So,
Well, I feel like I had a point with this Justin Brooks analogy.
I mean, you were talking about, so we're talking about good news and bad news. Is it a good thing to have invited a district attorney to an innocence conference? A lot of exonerees were not happy about it. That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
It's gone. You're a vat clone.
I'm a vat clone.
I'm in a trance.
I got replaced halfway through this conversation. Well, what are the questions we have for the audience here?
I'm curious if there's any pushback on the idea that there's no such thing as good news or bad news. I'm especially keen to know if there are anybody who really subscribe to the idea that all news is good news. Because there are people who 100% are on board with that. I particularly find that it's a spiritual stance for some people. I think a lot of people take solace in the idea that somebody in the universe has a plan and that plan is ultimately good. And so truly everything that happens is a blessing. Ergo, all news is good news. I think the Stoic position is one more of if you treat all news as good news, it will be good news, which is a strong, interesting stance to take. If you take the position that you're going to flip anything that happens into something that is in service of you, great. And it makes you a really pleasant person to be around, too, by the way. If you can be the guy who's
Although it could be a little insufferable, too, because as you pointed out, sometimes you need to feel the loss and the pain, and you need somebody to not be let's turn it around,
Well, okay, so here's where it gets really annoying. I love a person who can do that for themselves. If they're you know what? My tire is changed. I have to change my tire now. Now I can show off how I know how to change my tire. This is a great experience. I love it if somebody can do that for themselves, because then they're not putting
now
their
I can
negative
ask
energy.
ChatGPT to tell me how to change a tire.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't like it when someone puts that energy on someone else and expects them to that is when it's the worst. When they're oh no, it's good news that you lost your job and your wife. Now you're, whatever. Now you've got now you're ready to pivot. Fuck off, dude. I'm not, if you're not there and ready for that, it's really annoying when someone tries to project that onto you and make you feel bad.
I remembered
what
my point with the Justin Brooks thing was.
What was it?
It was about Lee and about, recognizing it's the Taoist principle of go with the, play ball with the universe, as Mel Brooks said. It's look at the landscape around you and see how the currents are moving. And, the metaphor Alan Watts uses that I love is that it's the difference between sailing and rowing. It doesn't mean that you accept that you have to go the way the current is going, but you can react intelligently to the current and to the winds and redirect them to go where you want to go. Or you can try and brute force row against the current.
And you're not going to go
because you insist on going this way and you won't get very far.
Yeah.
Right. And so the inviting the prosecutor, et cetera, those examples to me are examples of intelligent sailing rather than brute force rowing. The brute force rowing is just insisting, here's what's right, here's what's just, these people are the bad guys, I'm going to go straight for my goal and, fuck them. And the more intelligent thing is to look at the trends, look at the politics, see what levers you can pull, see who you can influence by being nice, even if they don't deserve it. All that stuff is sailing compared to rowing, I think.
Indeed. So I am curious to know of our listeners if anyone's just nope, bullshit, bad news is bad news, and anyone who says otherwise is kidding themselves and also being insensitive. I do think some people take the position that If your kid dies, it's fucking bad news. And if you spend the rest of your life in a shitty place because of it, that's totally understandable and valid. And a part of me is like on board with that. I mean, like, I'm not going to judge somebody if they end up spending the rest of their life in a shitty place because their kid died. That said, when you're in a shitty place, one thing that I fear, and this is why I'm always like really, really keen on, if I find myself in a shitty place, getting out of it as quickly as humanly possible, is when you are in a shitty place, you tend to act shitty towards other people. And that's the thing that I'm like most afraid of about when people embrace the shittiness of their lives, is their sort of willingness to accept shittiness in other people's lives.
There's also just an opportunity cost of not being a source of positivity,
Well, no, I
right?
mean, that, like, you can be a hermit and feel shitty for the rest of your life. Like, there is a way for you to uncomplicatedly be miserable for the rest of your life and not harm anyone else in the process.
But the
But
opportunity cost is still true. You're not out there helping people.
sure, but I don't think that like anyone necessarily needs to help anyone. I don't think that's the case. I think if you do help people, that's awesome. But like, again, if you are miserable for the rest of your life, as long as you're not hurting anyone, I'm not going to hold it against you. I
Yeah,
do
I
think,
mean, that standard of what you said earlier, like it's understandable. I think that's the line, right? It's like, yeah, I don't judge you for being that way, but it doesn't mean that's the preferable way to be if we're
well,
allowing preferences into this conversation, you know?
I mean, I'm just taking the stance that I'm not, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I view you as morally neutral. Okay? To get past the moral neutral is when you start doing things that help other people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. As long as you're not
Yeah.
hurting anybody, morally neutral.
It's moral duty versus moral honor, right? That's
You
the
always,
key
I
distinction.
love how you bring these masculine terms in. Honor,
That's
duty.
that's
I gotta fucking care.
that's how they talk about it in philosophy ethics classes. Sorry,
That
but it's
are
that's in the
written by
literature,
men.
in the literature written by men. Yes, I mean, like the classic, a child is drowning in a shallow pool as you walk by. If you do nothing, you're morally at fault because that was a moral duty, right?
Yes. Yes.
Whereas if you go out of your way to go find and seek out somebody who needs help and help them, you didn't have to do that, right?
Sure.
But we will honor you. We will accord you moral honor for having done so, right? Same thing
Anyway.
with like being a firefighter or something. That's a job that like where you risk your life to help people, and you get paid, you get health insurance, etc. But you also kind of get paid in respect from society. That's moral honor. But you don't get to fault somebody for not choosing to be a firefighter,
Right.
right?
Right.
So like you don't fault somebody for like being totally devastated by the loss of their child forever and ever.
Right.
But if that person is able to come out of that and, you know, be a
Not.
positive influence on society out of their hermitage, like that's great. And we should encourage that, I think.
Sure.
All
Yay.
right. I'm sure we've pissed some people off here somewhere.
Somewhere along the way, we said something
Yeah.
awful. Sorry about that.
Yep. Well, if that came into your mind as bad news, I've got news for you. It's just news.
Yeah, well, yeah. People love to hear that. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You can find us at amandanox.com and all the various places.